lot of the stuff that individuals tend to experience or have gone through, I've already experienced them and I've gone through them because I'm a type of person that I like to actually experiment based on trial and error and take certain things. It's like a business. You never actually start the business and you just keep going. You're always going to go up and down, up and down. There's failure. You're going to fail multiple times before you become successful once. And like I tell this to everybody, don't be afraid of trying and testing and see how your body reacts. But give it time. If you have good intentions to a lot of things, it will change, it will happen. Just don't rush it. Let your body take its course because the body can take a long time to heal.
Let's impact some men today. I think we're gonna do a great job. Too many men push for success while silently battling fatigue, stress, and declining health. Welcome to the Modern Man Podcast, where we connect men in pursuit of their potential. Join us as we embrace discomfort, cultivate community, and put wind in each other's sails. Now, before we jump into the episode, I first want to make sure that I ask that you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button to get a new episode each and every single week, and share this with someone else that you know can get value from it. To the men that are watching, I invite you to join the Noble Knights Men's Group, where you can find the support, the accountability, and the mentorship you need to achieve your goals. And I'm excited because we're getting wind in our sails today from my guest, who is a speaker, health optimization advocate, and specialist in performance and recovery for midlife men. He focuses on combining biology, biohacking, and practical strategies to help men in their 40s and 50s reclaim energy, clarity, and drive. His talk, Burnout or Biology, Why Midlife Fatigue Might Not Be in Your Head, centers on root causes like hormonal shifts, vascular decline, and nitric oxide insufficiency, offering real-world methods to reverse fatigue without guesswork. Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Berkeley Life, and it's a pleasure to have Maurice Daher on the podcast. Maurice, thank you for taking the time, brother.
Hey, thanks so much for the invite. Really appreciate it, and definitely looking forward to discussing everything in general, as you mentioned. And just to kind of give a brief about myself, as a clinical nutritionist, I actually been doing this for over than 20 years experience. So I do specialize in something that I believe most practitioners tend to miss. So getting men's bodies to actually work the way they're supposed to. And here's what I mean by that. I don't chase, let's say, symptoms. Instead, I dig into metabolic patterns, decode what your hormone signals are telling us, and figure out what your labs are actually saying, especially when your doctor just shrugs and says, everything looks fine, right? So whether you're an athlete who's suddenly hitting walls you've never hit before, we've all been there, or you're that guy dealing with bone deep fatigue, brain fog that feels like you're thinking through mud, or recovery times that makes you feel twice your age. So I tend to kind of help decode what's really going on, and then we rebuild it from the ground up. So no gimmicks, no magic bullets, just evidence-based strategies backed by decades of figuring out what actually works in the real world. So as been doing this for 20 years, if I go back in time, I thought I actually had to figure out, I fix the cholesterol, balance this vitamin, adjust that mineral, simple, right? But I kept watching the same problem with many patients. Someone's energy would actually improve while their sleep stayed completely wrecked. Blood pressure would normalize, but their weight kept creeping up. And that's when it actually hit me. I was actually doing what everybody else does, treating symptoms while completely missing the conversation happening between all these systems. So everything changed when I started to kind of seeing how your metabolism talks to your hormones and how nutrients absorption affects everything from whether you wake up and ready to tackle the day or hit snooze 5 times, from muscle recovery to that afternoon brain fog that derails the whole day. So that's what kind of got me into all this. There gotta be a solution to it. It's not like I hear this quite often. It's due to old age. There's no such thing as old age.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And
Not at
that
all.
was my first question because something you said that really jumped out at me. You said getting men's bodies to work the way that they're supposed to. And being a man in my upper 30s now, I have friends that talk about, oh, their recovery slow, or they wake up and they hear the cracks in their body and everything. And the answer is always like, oh, you're getting old. Oh, you're getting old. And it's almost as though we've accepted this false reality of I'm supposed to deteriorate. And my friends aren't even 40 yet. And I'm in my head, I'm thinking my best years are ahead of me. I'm luckily and I'm thankfully in a spot in life where I'm in some of the best shape of my life so far. And I feel as though I still have more room to grow and more room to go. So I first want to approach the question of how are men's bodies supposed to work? Because you don't tell me I'm supposed to be aching in my knees or anything like that. I'm never going to forget a doctor at 28 years old told me, oh, you're just getting old. You need to take aspirin. That didn't make sense to me. So, how are men's bodies supposed to work when they're optimized?
So, think of it as this is what's happening in your body right now. Okay.
Mhm.
So every cell, so we're just going to talk a little bit some science. So hopefully everybody will actually enjoy that part as well, because every single cell depends on blood flow to survive and actually function. Now, I know sometimes this is one of my major topics is all about, nitric oxide, because without nitric oxide, the blood flow pretty much is obsolete. So think of it as your nitric oxide is the molecule that actually controls whether your blood vessels are wide and open like a highway or
Mhm.
constricted like a back road with like a traffic cones everywhere. And what happened is it hits right at the age of, let's say, 40. So your body starts making about 10-15% less nitric oxide every single decade. So think about that. By the time you're like, 50, you're working maybe at 85% of your circulation you had when you were 40. And by the age of 60, you're down to about 70%. So no wonder guys feel they're running on empty. And, it's not all about old age. We do lose that molecule to actually produce proper nitric oxide, and that affects the blood flow. And once it affects the blood flow circulation, it actually affects everything. Because if you think about it, your brain needs blood flow to focus and for focus and memory. Your muscles need it for strength and recovery. Your heart needs it to pump efficiently. And yes, of course, we get a lot of men where your sexual function absolutely, hands down, it depends on it. Because
Mhm.
everything that makes you feel like a man requires adequate circulation. And that's where, an optimal person, the first thing we got to look at is how's your circulation like and where do you stand in presence of your, let's say, nitric oxide level. This is like hands down before we do anything else. Every person's diet lifestyle varies, high carbs, high protein, high fat, it varies, but it all comes down to that circulation.
Yeah. I want to get in the weeds with that if we can when it comes to circulation, the blood flow, because my base understanding is your blood flow, the red blood cells deliver oxygen to the rest of the body. Um, but I'm sure that's what a lot of our listeners learned in science class when they were in high school. But it's so much more than that. And nitric oxide is something that's new into my research and my discovery, which is why I'm excited to have this conversation. I'm curious if you could break down for us more of what the process is like. I take a deep breath in, goes into my lungs, dissipates into the blood, and the blood's on that highway, delivering it to the rest of my body in the areas that need it. How does that process work? And then we can add on how nitric oxide enhances that flow.
So, the way we have to look at it is, so there's different pathways of nitric oxide being produced in the body. So you have one option where it's all about, nasal breathing, for example. Um, so, for example, just to kind of break it down even better, um, So I would say, your morning habits, for example, as soon as you wake up, one of the most important thing to do is, go outside within that first hour of waking up and, do walk for about 10 minutes while you're focusing on nasal breathing, grounding. And what happens is the sunlight itself will actually trigger nitric oxide release in the skin. And the nasal breathing as well produces nitric oxide through your sinuses. And the gentle movement helps circulation overall, such as, let's say, body squats, maybe some type of simple isometric exercise. So this we get that trigger functioning correctly. Now, what happens is when it comes down to, let's say, food wise, that's where you have certain nitrates, such as you have beetroot, for example. Once you eat it, actually it contains very heavy amount of nitrates, and the nitrate will convert to nitrite, and nitrite converts to nitric oxide, and that's how we can actually vasodilate the arteries. So when we vasodilate the arteries, you're going to get much better blood flow going through. So it's going back to that example with the highways. So you either have the nice, let's say when you're under the age of 40, you have a nice 6-lane highways flowing nicely. By the time you hit over the age of 50, now that 6-lane highway has shrunk down to 2-lane highway, and the blood flow has actually slowed down. So you have interruptions, you have certain things that you've done over the years that kind of conflicted, and so that blood flow is very, very important. Even though we exercise and we eat right and we sleep right, we still have the environmental effects. We still have the food effect. What you think was healthy was not really healthy, and is sometimes conflicting with every different specific body or biology or microbiome, the way they actually perform. So everything kind of falls in that full category. So we cannot just look at one thing. We have to look at the full overall picture.
Hmm. When does the habits and the attention to nitric oxide begin, right? Again, I mentioned I'm in my upper 30s. I know at 40 it starts to decrease. Are there things for any listener that's 35 years old? Are there things we could do now to enhance production of nitric oxide? Or an even better question would be, are there things that we do that limit the production? Are there habits that might be detrimental to not just our blood flow, but the production of nitric oxide in our body?
Yeah, for example, a lot of heavily processed food that will actually conflicts with the production of nitric oxide. Certain things that we might eat. So, for example, I teach my patients to actually look at the ingredients and question everything. Anything you purchase, whether it's, let's say, whey protein for recovery, whether it's certain supplementation, look at the ingredients. If you can't spell the ingredients and you don't know what it is, 99% of the time your body is going to have such a hard time absorbing it. And now you've taken all that energy, and the body's taken all that energy and is focusing on breaking down that possible chemical, while it should be focusing on other things. For example, mouthwash conflicts with the oral bacteria. It prevents nitric oxide to actually get converted. Your microbiome, heavily intake of simple carbohydrates, over processed foods, heavy seed also. There's a lot of different, when it comes down to food, there's a lot of different chemicals man-made that actually it does conflict with how the nitric oxide production should actually work and stay working. And even thought, we see a lot of papers that says, after the age of 40, it actually start to decrease. But sometimes I tend to see it when we do specific biomarkers. We even see it at even prior to the age of 40, just because due to the habits and what we thought was healthy was not necessarily healthy for that individual. So we never really eat the same as the other person would eat. If I thrive eating, let's say, a burger every day and I feel great and I'm putting muscle mass, you do the same thing. But in your case, you're not sleeping well, you're heavily stressed, you have anxiety. Obviously, whatever is in that food is affecting you a lot faster than it's affecting me. So I always tell this to everybody, doing fasting and sometimes being tuned in with your body. So every time you eat something or you do something, if you feel a slight negativity from it, whether a couple hours after or the next day, question what you ate, question the source. And that's very, very
Mm.
important. you can actually prevent any further damage. Because if you don't, and you just say, hey, I'm going to eat it because that influencer and that doctor says it's actually fine for me, and you continue consuming it, but suddenly things are just building up, and suddenly it might hit you when you hit at a specific age in life.
Yeah. I hear, and I know it's very popular. You see, I'm wearing the Whoop, and they talk about the anabolic age, right? And how you could deteriorate your body with your habits, or you can even preserve some of your body by how you live. And that's kind of what I'm gathering. It's there's some habits that might accelerate the process a little bit more, while there's others that could work in our favor. I'm curious as to how nitric oxide helps when it comes to the mental clarity aspect and cardiovascular health. Because you mentioned flow, but I'm curious as to more of the science and the nitty gritty in terms of what's happening there when our levels are optimized at 40, and even when it starts to decline. As long as we're doing the things that help us, what are the benefits that we get? If iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another. But if you're a man and you're alone or listening to this, then who sharpens you? What's going on, guys? Ted Phaeton here, host of the Modern Man podcast, also founder of the Noble Knights Mastermind Group. And I'm just out here encouraging you to find your circle. Maybe you're on a personal growth journey and nobody around you understands the new mentality that you're possessing. That's okay. You can find an online community that will pour into you, will navigate your goals and navigate your obstacles, share their experiences, resources, and more. Join the Noble Knights Mastermind Group and try us out for free to tap into a community of men helping each other scale up and reach their goals. Check out themodernmanpodcast.com.
So when it comes down to the nitric oxide, it's all about, even thought you might wear the devices to actually monitor, let's say, your HRV, your sleep, your eating habits, your exercise, all that stuff. You can perform better because everything is kind of set by your circadian. So for example, there's no such thing as, eating, let's say, 3 meals a day, 4 meals a day, or I have to wake up and have something in the morning, or I have to eat, a couple hours before I sleep. It's personally based on your circadian level. When do you wake up? When is your first meal should be? When is your last meal should be? How much protein you require per 1 pound of body weight? All that stuff matters, and how much fat is required, and do I require, carbohydrates to actually get to the energy I want? But let's say when we're looking at, say, for example, I would say cardiovascular, the first thing you're going to end up noticing is, how's your sleep? Your HRV tend to kind of crash if you do monitor with Oura Ring or the watch you're wearing. You're going to notice your HRV changing. You're going to notice that blood pressure is fluctuating. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing or a good thing, but that's a sign. You're going to notice your hands and feet sometimes are getting much colder, much quicker, especially in an air conditioning area, or if you step in cold water in a lake or the ocean, for example, suddenly you feel they're getting quite cold quite fast. So all that stuff is actually related to blood flow. Then, of course, with some of the wearables, you're going to notice that your HRV is being interrupted in your sleep when you wake up in the morning, and you think is like, okay, it looks like I skipped a beat or I stopped breathing. Is there a reason for that? Is it because your breathing is not sufficient enough? Is it something got blocked? Is it something is giving you a sign that something is happening in the body? And these signs, these subtle signs, they might not be something massive right now, but possibly down the road, they could be affecting you. So it's something you have to kind of look into. But, and the downfall is, if you end up seeing a practitioner or others, automatically they test few things. They start testing your testosterone, they start testing your cholesterol, and they test your blood pressure, which it's an inaccurate testing. But they never really look at the root cause. And the root cause could be all because your nitric oxide is starting to drop and it's not being producing correctly. And sometimes we tend to see a lot of patients with high levels of anxiety and depression and stress, very major stress, and they cannot get away from it. And sometimes they end up blaming it on drinking coffee or taking stimulants. while it's the other way
Mm.
around, that your nitric oxide is starting to crash, and it's a sign.
How do we recover? I know you mentioned some of the dietary ways that we can um, release more nitric oxide in our bodies. Um, After the age of 40, that natural decline, what are some ways that we can combat the decline and lean into some habits? Because I want to give the viewers at home some tangible things to take home, right? Some things that they can do right now to combat this and increase their blood flow. So, what are some things that you would recommend for us to adopt and do in order to increase or maintain as much nitric oxide in our blood as possible?
So I'll share something that I actually do, let's say, um, as a daily habit. Um, so the first morning, as soon as you wake up, the first hour is very, very important. And what a lot of individuals do, they just get up and they jump in the shower and they get ready for work. They're automatically living that flight or fight stress where they want to get to work ASAP. But the most important thing is, even if you set yourself up where you wake up 2 hours prior to your work, because I know a lot of people still go out and work and they have a specific schedule, meetings and everything. But the first hour is very, very important. Either um, you wake up and you go outside and take 10 minutes, walk around bare feet, grounded, do some nasal breathing. That's very, very important. Some grounding, get your body in a proper flow,
Mhm.
get all that stress out from your system.
Why nasal breathing?
Well, nasal breathing, what happens is it triggers the nitric oxide release into your sinuses, and that's how you actually get that nitric oxide production working.
Mm.
If you do like mouth breathing, what happens is, and this is normal, we get a lot of men, they do a mouth breathing at night, especially, and we actually interrupt the proper conversion correctly. So nasal breathing is very, very important for that to get that circulation on the go. So that would be the one thing. Even if you're doing, let's say, um, you breathe in, you hold it for 4 seconds, you release, do that about 3, 4 times. That would be a good start while you're taking a walk, and just some gentle movement. Some gentle movement. I like to do personally, I like to do isometric, such as wall sit or plank for at least 2 minutes. So you can cause that stress on the body. And when you release that stress, you actually target more nitric oxide across your body. So these are some of the gentle things you can do, but the sunlight is going to actually trigger the most. Now, living here in Canada, I don't get sunlight, which is unfortunate. If I'm up at 4 a.m., I don't get my sun till about 7 o'clock. So there's a 3 hour gap. So you can use other things. You can use either supplementation or certain lux light to actually get your morning started, your circadian set up. And this way, it actually improves your overall body.
Mm.
And of course, then you have your intake of food. Now, it depends what you eat, whether you're a morning person or an afternoon person, whether you fast or not. Your first meal is very, very important, and it should be, as nutrient dense as possible to get you throughout the day without feeling any crashes, without feeling cravings. You just want to satisfy your body, because keep in mind, when you actually wake up in the morning, your body already lost so much electrolytes, so much mineralization, and all we do is just drink regular water. You got to make sure your water is hydrated correctly with proper electrolytes so you can function correctly. We're talking salt. Think of salt as consciousness. Activates your body. It's going to actually add all the missing mineralization that your body has gone through overnight. So that's the first thing you do before. I know we have a lot of individuals, sometimes they wake up, they turn on the coffee machine, while they're getting ready, they have the coffee already pre-made. And that's the first thing we do, is we're causing more dehydration in our body instead of actually replenishing the loss of the mineralization. And all these little things, they compound, they can accumulate on top of each other. So if you don't actually stay consistent to it, you're going to notice within 2, 3 weeks, hey, I've been doing really, really well. Suddenly I feel down. What did I do different for the past 2, 3 days? And you're always going to question that again.
Is there a way to go too far, right? Like, can we produce too much NO in our bodies?
In theory, how can I say this? Yes, but in practical terms, it's quite rare. Your body has actually, it's like a built-in regulation system for nitric oxide. So it's not like having too much caffeine where you'll definitely feel jittery, right? So the only time people would actually notice having too much if they went overboard with supplements and or ate massive amounts of nitrate-rich foods, and they might maybe experience, let's say, lightheadedness, for example, or slight dizziness, is because the blood pressure has dropped too quickly. Um,
Mm.
that's the only time you might feel. Now, the bigger issue is usually the opposite. See, most men are always operating at, let's say, suboptimal nitric oxide levels and don't even realize it. And the body naturally balances nitric oxide production on what you need, especially if you're, let's say, supporting it through natural methods like dietary nitrates, exercise, and of course, like lifestyle factors.
Yeah. How can we measure nitric oxide? Because I know we have fitness trackers. I can see my blood oxygen percentage, things like that, and we get our blood work, and I'll see my testosterone levels, cholesterol, and whatnot. Is there a way to test and measure our NO production or the NO levels in our blood?
There's one way is you can definitely get strips to make sure that when you're eating nitrates, it's actually is active and your body is producing it. You can actually put a strip on your tongue, and you can definitely check the coloration. Another thing is we've seen over the data that a biomarker such as C-reactive protein, which is an inflammatory factor, tend to drop and tend to actually stay level. There's other biomarkers such as ADMA, where it checks, is your body's producing, too much arginase that is actually not allowing nitric oxide to be efficient enough. So there's ways of actually doing a little bit further to make sure you are on the right track.
Mhm.
Me personally, I do the testing strips. I do a biomarker once every couple of weeks to make sure my inflammatory factor is good, because inflammation is everything. You have inflammation, you're going to suppress certain things. So that actually plays a huge role in men's health as well to kind of keep an eye on.
Yeah. I want to talk about some supplementation because if our NO production naturally goes down after the age of 40, I kind of imagine it as think of your phone battery that you keep plugged in. When you first get it, that thing lasts all day. But after like a year or two, your phone only lasts half the day. It's almost as if the efficacy and the effectiveness of the battery goes down. And I kind of interpret that with our NO levels after age 40, the production starts to go down. How can we facilitate not just with the dietary approaches or lifestyle approaches, but how can supplementation help with the maintenance of our nitric oxide levels?
So with the supplementation, the way it works, um, what happened is you want to end up going towards more of a nitrate rich supplementation. And there have been a lot of studies been done when you meet up to, I believe, 300 milligrams of nitrate. It activates the nitrate to nitrite, which is the nitric oxide production. And that's like one of the best pathway to actually get as a supplementation. So you can either, as soon as you wake up in the morning, you can take your nitrate supplements to actually vasodilate your arteries and get your blood flow going. We have certain individuals, they like to take it at night to actually works by vasodilating your arteries. You breathe better, you feel better, and they've noticed their HRV actually has increased dramatically. But the nice thing about it is you have to meet a specific amount of milligram to activate the pathway. If you don't, then you're going to fall short. And so,
Mm,
so the supplementation plays a huge role, but the extraction of the supplementation plays a huge role. So you understand how much nitrate you're getting, because if you just purchase a regular supplement, and it does not state how much extraction. So technically, you're taking a supplement blindly without knowing exactly how much nitrate it does actually contain. So always look for quality over quantity, and not so much the pricing. Is look exactly what you're getting so you can activate that pathway. Because if you're not getting the amount required, then you're never going to hit that specific target correctly. And you're gonna
yeah.
notice if you do the testing strips, for example, if we're testing to see, is my body's producing correctly or not, you're gonna notice that it's very faded, or, within 2 or 3 hours it's completely gone. Well, if you actually take the proper milligram amount, it could last you almost 6 to 7 hours.
Mm. What did you notice for your personal journey when I know you mentioned early on, I mean, 20 years experience here, starting out by treating symptoms, doing what everyone else is doing, to now settling in on honing in on the core problem, right? And as you optimize and you paid more attention to your NO levels, what were some of the changes you recognized and experienced in your life?
Um, so going back prior to 20 years, let's say, what I've noticed is the first sign I've noticed was that I kind of start to kind of question is, cold hands and feet.
Mhm.
Constant. I would actually, I'll be doing exercise, I'll be breathing correctly and everything. I would get like cold hands. You run to the doctor says, "Oh, you're fine. You just, elevate your feet or do certain exercises." And that thing never really, really changed. So over the years, things start to kind of occur. My blood pressure start to actually go up. My performance in the gym was not as good. I would actually struggle to recover. When I was in my early 20s, I would actually work out, daily, 5 days a week, and still perform amazing, still go out with friends, have a great time, and suddenly everything just starts to slow down quite fast. And that's when I've noticed there's something not going right with me. And, you go to the doctor and the practitioner, the most thing they said, well, the only thing we can do is we can check your testosterone and we can check your cholesterol. They check cholesterol. Cholesterol is slightly fine. Testosterone, average, you drop 1 to 4%. And as part of age, you're told, right? You don't know what to do. And that's when I start to actually do a lot more research. And I did come across some study that they actually won a Nobel Prize back in 1998, where, nitric oxide, they actually the researchers did show that nitric oxide is actually the molecule that tells blood vessels to relax and open up, because your body relaxes and contracts. So sometimes your body goes in too much contraction and not enough relaxation, because you're starting to lose that. And when you have too much contraction, you're always tense. You're always in that fight or flight mode all the time. Whether you sleep good, you eat good, you do everything correct by the book, but you're still struggling, is because your body's constantly being constructed. And that's when I start to actually look into it much deeper. And I've been using myself personally, I've been using nitric oxide for the past 10 years, 11 years now. So I would never stop.
Nice. I want to paint the promised land for the guys that are listening and watching, right? Because the cold hands, the cold feet, the fatigue, the aches, those are things that, again, the false belief that that's part of aging, and that's not the case. On the opposite side, let's say a client comes to you today and they're having these negative impacts. Talk about the client's journey on the opposite side. What are some of the benefits of life, whether it's the cognitive performance workouts? What are some of the benefits that they get to experience in their day to day that will help some of the viewers and the listeners at home really kind of get that promised land in mind?
So to kind of break it down, so when I see a patient and they come back, they come to me with a lot of issues. The first issue is sometimes, um, and it's funny, everything kind of circulates in the same way. Most of them will come back with a blood pressure issue, cold hands and feet, tingling sensation, having a hard time remembering certain things or staying focused. And at the same time, I start to ask a lot of personal questions, and it becomes like, the decrease of sexual function, all these things that actually are all kind of within that same category of that nitric oxide being depleted, pretty much, as
Mm,
simple as I can put it, because it's all about uh, the root cause is a circulation problem. And once I start to dig a little bit deeper, then we actually find out, well, what is your lifestyle? What is your habits? Well, and they tell me, well, Maurice, I eat 2 meals a day. I'm like, okay, between the 2 meals, do you snack? He's like, yeah, I snack about 4 times a day. So technically you are eating 6 times a day. A snack is a meal. So you're constantly activating your glucose, you're constantly activating your insulin. So you're not really giving your body any rest to
Mm.
recover. So you're using all that energy to actually digest food, but you're not using any of that energy to actually heal your body and perform at its optimal level. So your body is always in overdrive all the time. And that becomes an issue because eventually in time it causes circulation problem because you're not really giving any resting for your body to recover from. So you're constantly in an eating mode. And the first thing I fix is the eating habit because that eating habit plays a massive role before I actually get them to take any type of supplementation. If we're not going to fix the eating habit, because the supplementation is going to fix or replace any missing gaps in your diet. But
Mhm.
if you're not willing to fix your intake of food and lifestyle, these can only work at such a small percentage. The rest is up to you to stay consistent. And it's whether you
Yeah.
want to proceed with it or not. And that's very, very crucial. So understanding your lifestyle, your eating habits, doing some minor adjustments in your diet while we're working slowly, because it's all about staying consistent, while we're working slowly to actually get you to the point where you really want to be. There's no such thing as magic pill I can give you, and within 24 hours, your blood pressure is going to drop, your sexual enhancement is going to be amazing, and others. You have to actually work at it. I still have a lot of individuals where they take pills or they take certain supplementation. They say, Maurice, it's been 24 hours, 36 hours. I haven't felt a thing. You know, you've had issues for 10, 15 years. It's not going to happen overnight. You have to gradually and stay consistent. So consistency is the key. It's the same way, you know, I advise them, well, when you open up your own company, are you going to, you know, go from step 1 to step 100 and make $1 million in a heartbeat? Or are you going to work at it and let things flow because you're consistently staying at the, on the drive, on the guidelines, so you can actually get to the point where you want to get from A to B. You cannot go from A to D or E automatically. You have to gradually. So same thing with the body. The body, all it does is it has time. You just have to kind of give it the right nutrients, and don't use food as entertainment. Use food to actually satisfy your needs so you can get to the point where you want to be.
Don't use food as entertainment. That is a bar right there because so many people need to hear that. Um, I'm curious because we know that nitric oxide helps increase blood flow. What is it about better blood flow that helps in all the functionalities? Help us understand. And I know it could be the oxygen being delivered, but like, what is it about the increased blood flow, the 6-lane highway that helps with our cognitive function, less fatigue, and warmth in the hands? Help us understand how that works together.
Um, how can I put this? Let's see. See, everything kind of we can't really look at, you know, one thing only. We have to kind of look at everything because blood flow delivers, let's say, hormones where they need it. Poor circulation, you know, it becomes to like a weaker testosterone signaling, slower clearance, reduce oxygen to muscle. You get fatigue, you get poor recovery, your energy drive, your mood, all actually are tied in with circulation. So
Mm,
if you come in to me and tell me, Maurice, I exercise every day, I've been doing it for 10 years, I feel amazing, I recover so quickly, but for the past few weeks, I just hit a wall and I'm starting to dip. I'm doing the same weight, eating the same way, I've increased my protein intake, and I'm not feeling good. It's because you don't have enough circulation and you have reduced oxygen to your muscle. So that fatigue, that poor recovery is actually occurring because you're actually suppressing your nitric oxide. So that circulation is very, very important because it doesn't just work for one thing. It works in everything from head to toe.
mhm,
So anything that happens in the body, everything requires energy. You know, if you sleep, you need energy. If you work out, you need energy. If you eat, you require energy. If we're talking right now, me and you, we require energy to actually think and utilize our brain. So if your energy is being depleted, which is, let's say, your mitochondria is being depleted, your nitric oxide is not going to function as good. So people are going to end up getting, like, say, the afternoon fatigue. They're going to automatically go for their coffee. They're going to notice, low libido, brain fog, memory declining. I can't remember certain names. And all that is all tied in with circulation.
Yeah.
All tied in with the circulation. So anything that happens in the body, the first step before you actually take a supplement, before you actually look at your brain fog, is it the medication I'm taking? Is it this I'm doing? Look at circulation as being as your number one. Once you fix circulation, almost, I would say, I cannot guarantee that, but I would say at least 70-80% of the symptoms are actually related to the circulation. You fix circulation, suddenly all these things has been repaired. Now you can actually focus a little bit more on the main concern that you have. Because,
Mhm.
to kind of give you an example, if somebody has an issue with their heart, for example, they go and they treat their heart. Well, no, you have to actually go and understand your circulation and is your mitochondria working or not. If they are working, then we can actually, okay, let's break it down to see why is your heart is not functioning correctly.
Mhm. Well, a couple last questions here as we come towards the end. And one is, I don't know if it's too technical, but with nitric oxide helping in circulation, opening up the veins, the 6-lane highway, I see it as the best description I can relate this to is like, this is your supply system, right? This is your supply network of how everything's delivered to your whole body. And if there's a backup on I-85, there's a jam, then the whole body's going to suffer from that traffic jam because it's just not being delivered as efficiently. So the supply chain requires on the 6-lane highway to move smoothly. How does nitric oxide open up the blood vessels? How does it make you more vascular?
So think of nitric oxide as like a gas molecule. Um,
Hmm.
and the way it does is just it vasodilates your arteries. It vasodilates everything, so therefore you can actually open up everything. So let's say if a person does have clots over the time, oxidized lipids, for example, so that arteries that actually they're starting to have these cones everywhere and interrupting the flow. And all this stuff happens because, of course, diet plays a huge role, but lack of nitric oxide. And what happened is your arteries are starting to get constricted, but you have issues in your arteries. So you're not allowing proper blood flow. So let's say if you're supposed to have a good 100% blood flow, suddenly you hit a specific age, you only have 40%. And of course, when individuals, they get specific scans, they say, oh, wow, I got 60% blockage. Why did that happen? Well, that's when we have to actually revisit everything. So it's not something we can control because every individual, they have a different gene mutation. um, as I mentioned earlier, what they think was healthy is not necessarily healthy for that person. And sometimes we do need a lot more, we need to dig a lot more deeper into every individual's body. But the first step is we increase circulation and we vasodilate everything. We get the gas molecule functioning through supplementation. Obviously, their body's not producing it correctly, and obviously their intake of food is not helping as good. At least we got something that is fulfilling that missing gap while we're actually addressing the root cause. So now we got the circulation going, we got the blood flow going, we got the gas molecule working. Now let's look at everything. How's your diet, your lifestyle? And don't tell me, for the past 2-3 weeks I've been eating healthy. It's what have you been eating for the past couple years that actually reflects, because an average issue that occurs in the body, or an average symptom, it doesn't just happen overnight. It takes years to develop. So
Hmm.
if you go 10 years ago, and 10 years ago you were, going out, having a slight drink, smoking cigar, or enjoying some whiskey, well, guess what? 10 years down the road, finally a head hits you, and now you're actually stuck with it. And it doesn't mean we
Hmm.
can fix it right away. We just have to actually compensate for some of the losses, because once you get a deficiency in certain mineralization, well, these deficiencies are not going to allow nitric oxide to continue producing correctly, because without certain mineralization, the nitric oxide is not going to be working correct. So we start to look at, okay, let's add some nitrate-rich foods so we can get more oxygen, get better circulation. Let's get you some nasal breathing. Let's get you do some exercise, even slight movement. A human being was meant to move, not to sit idle all day long. And once we do these things, let's make sure we avoid any antibacterial mouthwash and toothpaste because they kill actually nitrate reducing bacteria. Then we actually start to fuel your gut microbiome correctly because the nitrate supplementation, let's say, they do act as a prebiotic fuel as well too to actually convert nitrate to nitrite to nitric oxide. We make sure we protect the mouth. So we got all the basics going. Now we just have to fix that lifestyle so we can get everything 100% optimized. Because if we're not going to do that, it's almost like you're taking one step forward, 10 steps backward, and you're going to be on supplements for the rest of your life because you're not willing to actually change or adjust to the new you, for example.
Yeah. It's all about starting with the root cause at the base of all of it, and that is really how we solve everything else, right? If we don't fix the foundation, the structure is always going to be shaky. This has been amazing. I want to make sure that our audience has a way to connect with you, follow you. What are some of the best links or resources that they can reach out to?
So I am actually quite active in a lot of the social media, from YouTube to TikTok, Instagram. I just use my name, which is Maurice Daher. They can actually reach out any questions. If they do go to as well some of the uh, even if they search my name on Google, actually I do come up quite often, and more than happy to. I do have a good mass of followers for my articles because I do write a lot of articles as well too. So there's a lot of valuable information out there that you can find out, and I actually break things a little bit more in specific, and I kind of the way I get it done, so make it quite easy for everybody to understand. I always kind of create more of a protocol, like almost like a 90-day protocol where I force every person to actually print it out, stick it on the wall. It could be like a frequency activation, could be a motivation, but don't ask for anything. Just let things flow through your body and just think about it and smile, because that's the first thing you want to do every morning you wake up. And once you read it, you're setting yourself up for success, not for negativity or anything like that. So we want to make sure we take all that out and we focus on healing, not actually just being stuck. You're not stuck. We just want to know exactly what works for you and what doesn't.
Yeah, amen to that. And I'll have those links in the show notes for folks to find you and connect with you. This last question's more of a personal one, but something that you can share your insights on. I always ask this at the end. It's what is something you've seen or something that's happened to you that shapes the way you view the world as a man?
Um, I've been through lots myself. Like so, what kind of got me to this place or where I'm at? A lot of the stuff that individuals tend to experience or have gone through, I've already experienced them and I've gone through them because I'm a type of person that like to actually experiment based on trial and error and take certain things. It's like a business. You never actually start the business and you just keep going. You're always going to go up and down, up and down. There's failure. You're going to fail multiple times before you become successful once. And don't be afraid. Like I tell this to everybody, don't be afraid of trying and testing and see how your body reacts. But give it time. Give it time because, if you have good intentions to a lot of things, it will change. It will happen. Just don't rush it.
Mm,
Let your body take its course because the body can take a long time to heal. But it's the same way when you start your business, or the same way you want to increase your HRV or oxygen levels, well, you have to stay consistent where you're going to sleep every single night at 8 p.m. The moment you're going to not sleep at 8 p.m. and sleep at 8:30 or 9, guess what? You just suffered. You just caused an issue where you wake up the next day, you're not 100% optimal. If you were going to hit the gym and work out super hard, now because you suffered that 30 minutes, you actually caused an issue where you're not going to be able to work out anymore. So think about it. Think about it about you, not about others. So make sure you are 100% satisfied, not to actually satisfy others. Satisfy your needs first, and make sure you're all 100% in before you actually help others. Because if you're not going to do that, you're never going to be optimal.
Amen. Speaker, health optimization advocate, and specialist in performance and recovery for midlife men, focusing on combining biology, biohacking, and practical strategies to help men in their 40s and 50s reclaim their energy. Maurice Daher, thank you for being on the podcast today.
Thank you, and really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you don't mind, I'm going to recap some of the gems that you left along the way, because a lot of our listeners are driving, or they're reading, or even sometimes working out while listening, or cleaning. So getting bodies to work the way that they're supposed to. Fellas, no, you're not getting old. You're not supposed to be achy. You're not supposed to be tired. You're not supposed to have the brain fog, and your sexual performance is not supposed to decrease. Maybe it's circulation. Maybe that's the root cause to all the problems that you're having. Every single cell relies on blood flow to survive. How do you enhance that blood flow? How do you pay attention to that? Are you looking at your nitric oxide levels? Are you testing with strips on the tongue? Because NO controls if your blood vessels are open or shut. Is it a 6-lane highway, or are we in a 2-lane backup? And if you're in that 2-lane backup, that's likely why you're having that brain fog and those memory problems. Wake up, get sun, walk, eat well. The habits of your life will also enhance or decrease the natural nitric oxide production in your body. So do yourself a favor and have the healthy habits. Also, look at the ingredients, question everything. If you can't pronounce it, if you can't read the words, if it sounds like it's gibberish, your body probably doesn't like it either. So question everything and pay attention. If you eat something and you have your consistency habits, I talk about a food journal. It might sound like too much, but having a food journal helped me identify what foods are for me, what foods are not for me. And I'll tell you what, sometimes those chicken wings are worth it. I'm just going to say it. But pay attention. And inflammation is everything. Everything requires energy. And if you're inflamed, that will get in the way and steal the energy in your body. And all these things relate to NO. They relate to nitric oxide and the circulation in your body. So consistency is key. If you're using energy to digest, you're not using it to recover. You can't do both at the same time. Don't use food as entertainment, and everything requires energy. Nitric oxide is the supply chain of the body. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Mr. Daher, again, for your expertise and your time. I'm going to ask that you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and share this with somebody else that you hear talking about getting old and it's just the aches of the body. You know that's not true. Send them this to debunk that. And again, a big thank you to our sponsor for today's episode, Berkeley Life, which you could check out to find supplementation to help your nitric oxide production. With that being said, as we always say at the end of the episode, everybody wants the sunshine, but they don't want the rain. But you can't get the pleasure without first the pain. Let's grow.